This is the Scottish Football Show, and here's what's coming up. Celtic stunned by robbery, Matondo. It's going right down to the wire, folks. Who's in the top six mix? And 140 years in the making. Stenhousemuir, you are League Two champions. Hello, yes, welcome on board again, episode 33 of this season's podcast. My God. Joining me, Laura Brannan from TNT Sports, senior producer. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I've got a sore throat.
Perfect timing to host a podcast then.
Absolutely. Screaming at Queen of the South once again this weekend, but we'll get into that later. And Finn chuckling away there, the creative director at Melbourne FC. Over there in the dark, mate, in your car, if anyone's watching this on YouTube right now.
No, it's the clocks have changed, so I'm back to the early shifts doing the podcast, which I don't mind. Always worth getting up at any time of the day for Scottish football. I'm a bit kind of derbied out my nut at the moment because it was the Melbourne derby this weekend as well. 86-minute winner for Melbourne victory. So not great news,
dear.
but yeah, marginally better probably. I think from a Scottish interest in derbies this weekend, but we'll get into that in due course.
Are you at liberty to say like how so that's a big derby that your club, your employers have lost? Like, so do you like do a Real Madrid and just cut their goal out? You heard this, like Real Madrid TV, like they like their match highlights, they'll cut out all tackles that led to fouls. And,
Do they?
all
No.
yellow cards, like all the highlights, won't see any Real Madrid player getting a yellow card and like that. Do you do any of that business?
Like the North Korean national team highlights? No, we just put out highlights like that we get direct from the league. So yeah, everything's included in all its dirty glory. Yeah,
all prim and proper, lovely.
All prim and proper, all above board. Yeah.
Laura, what have you been up to, pal?
What have I been up to? I did a Euros shoot with Ali McCoy the other day, so that was good fun.
Yay!
Yeah.
Name drop.
No, it was good fun. It's a piece that we're keeping for obviously later in the season to kind of preview the tournament. So maybe in a month or so we'll get it out. But it was good fun. Previewing how Scotland will do, and I was quite impressed that it was one of the English pundits that was quite high in praise, shall I say. I don't want to reveal too much, but that was good fun.
High in praise of who? Of Scotland?
Of Scotland, saying that we'll be the dark horses of the tournament.
Ooh.
And how much did you slip them in a wee envelope to say that?
To be fair, I was quite pleased it was one of the English pundits that did it and not just Ali being predictable, Ali fighting the corner for Scotland. So I thought that was quite a good balance.
Regret it's not, it's a good laugh on it. So
I didn't find it funny.
Guys, I'm going to kick things off in our usual little geezer laugh section here. I hope you don't mind, but I am stealing the Craig Levein post-match comment from when's big win, actually, St Johnstone against Hibs. But Craig Levein was asked post-match, do you like winning at Easter Road? And it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Don't know how many times you've been to this ground, Craig, but you never fail to enjoy winning here, do you?
I love it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, he loves it. He absolutely loves it.
He's good at that. I mean, it's what you want. It's like, because he's like bleeds hearts. Like he's just, I think any chance he gets to get one over Hibs at Easter Road, especially, it's brilliant. It's just part of the colour of our game. I absolutely love it.
Finn, are you telling me you love it?
I love it. We just got to get clipped out for a soundbite of its own now. Yeah, he's
absolutely
for that. Just staying with former Hearts managers, though, I've got no way of verifying this is just stuff that I've seen on Twitter, but it could be one of the best things ever. And I hope there's audio that exists of it somewhere. But apparently, it's kind of doing the rounds. Robbie Neilson was doing a whiskey distillery tour, I think, over the weekend. Clinched distillery, which I think is in Lothian somewhere. But apparently there was a football fan that recognised him that was also on the tour. But apparently Robbie Neilson was doing a French accent throughout the tour.
What?
Not entirely sure why. Is it to like keep his cover or whatever? But there's a screenshot of somebody being like, I'm pretty sure Robbie Neilson's on this distillery tour, but also he's putting on a French accent. And then he's taking a picture and everybody's like, no, that's definitely Robbie Neilson. So it's like, I could maybe understand. I know he's been out in the States. If this was a distillery tour in the States and he wants to keep a low profile, although why would you? I could maybe understand it. But if you're in the Lothians, right, and you're a former Hearts player and manager, you're probably going to get spotted by a football fan. Why on earth would you do like a Steve McLaren, Joey Barton, like fake accent to do it?
I love that.
But now I'm just overwhelmed with curiosity. I want to know what it sounds like. What does Robbie Neilson doing a French accent at a distillery sound like?
Yeah,
and how good was it the more he had a wee swally, you know?
Can't even believe that. I'm looking at the picture now. Like, it's definitely him.
Yeah, I need video evidence of this. I need to hear it.
Yeah, probably won't happen. It would have been out by now. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Laura, you got anything for us?
I did like Theo Bair's Instagram post after the 3-2 win at Dundee at the weekend. Did you see the location that he tagged these photos from?
What was it? No?
He tagged it as Olympic swimming pool instead of Dens Park. So a nice wee dig there from Theo.
Oh, I see.
So I thought that was quite clever after obviously the hoo-ha around the game being postponed possibly and going ahead, and obviously a little dig at the conditions, but he got the last laugh, didn't he?
Well, yeah, I'm just looking. Have Canada ever had an Olympic gold medal in swimming? Oh, they won 3 swimming medals. So maybe he does know his
they're quite good then.
rules. Yeah, at London 2012, so a good wee while ago.
A while back. Okay.
Good
Was even born then.
Yeah, exactly. No, love that. Right, okay. We're done with the funnies. We're not laughing now. We're getting stuck into the news, the boring bit. But if you did enjoy the fun bit, you should stick a wee follow on all of our social media platforms, like Twitter, Laura, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, MySpace, Bebo. Anything else? What else are we on? And follow us on YouTube. That's the big one. But if you do really like us, it'd be really good if you could leave a wee review on like Apple iTunes or whatever, because that gives us a wee boost in ratings, which is always a pleasure to see. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get stuck into the big one. Ethan.
Rangers desperate to keep this alive. Lundstrom. Matondo. That is stunning from Robbie Matondo. It's 3-3 in a pulsating derby.
Okay then, guys, let's get stuck into the biggest game of the weekend. Biggest game of the season, really, if you think of it, in the top flight of the Scottish Premiership. Rangers 3, Celtic 3. Both clubs have it in their own hands. Depends who wins all their games, or most of their games, really, after the split, it seems. But it was one hell of a tie, one hell of a fixture. One for not the purists, but certainly the neutrals. But yeah, a dramatic 3-3 tie. Celtic still lead by a point. Rangers have a game in hand. They play Dundee in the week coming up. And joining us to dissect the game with myself and Finn, it's Sky Sports News' Anthony Joseph. So Anthony, I know you're a Celtic fan. So the big pressure was on Celtic going to Ibrox. And would they be happy with a point, do you think?
I think they'll be content. And I actually think both sides will probably feel content, and both sets of fans and both clubs. Because I think before the game, going into it, if you were asking me as a fan, would I be happy with a point at Ibrox? I think I would definitely say yes, but knowing that there's the game at Celtic Park to come after the split. But when you're 2-0 up, you really think you should be seeing that game out, and Celtic will be disappointed that they led by 2 goals, and were quite comfortable in that first half and looking to add, especially the last few minutes of that first half, looking to add to their 2-goal tally. They had a great chance with Matt O'Reilly and another good chance from Hatate going close. So they'll be disappointed not to have seen that out, that 2-goal lead, but then also possibly even more disappointed not to have seen out Adam Ida's lead, with him making it 3-2, just seeing out those final moments. But your question was, was I content as a Celtic fan? Am I content with the point? I think I am, and I think most Celtic fans would be, knowing what's to come, knowing that Rangers have got to go to Celtic Park, and knowing that Celtic are probably going to have a lot more home games before the end of this season.
That's interesting. That's a good point to bring up in a little while. But Finn, is it more surprise at this Rangers performance, or is there positives to take from coming from behind? What is the sentiment amongst Rangers fans, would you think?
I think there's a lot of confusion amongst the sentiment, to be honest. I don't think anybody really knew what to make of it, just because it was such a frenetic end. It's just, it's interesting as well, thinking of the same question that you just asked to Anthony. Before the game, I think most Rangers fans would have been demanding, I don't think necessarily expecting a win, but really hoping Rangers could give a good account of themselves. But then the way the game panned out, you kind of have to be happy, I think, with the point, because of the performance, I guess, in the end. Because I think the first half was as bad as Rangers have played under Clement. They sat off. Celtic didn't need to do much and found themselves 2-0 up. And like Anthony was saying quite rightly, Celtic should have been out of sight by half time. The amount of chances they had, I think Jack Butland was fairly inspired. I think in the first half he pulled off a couple of terrific saves. It's just it's kind of hard to dissect a game like that. I think trying to take yourself out of it a little bit. I personally, I just felt it was an incredible advert for the game. Like I remember the kind of swashbuckling 3-3, 2-2, a lot of the derbies that happened in like the 90s and the 2000s. Like I think it's something we've kind of missed. And as I don't want to sound like a football hipster, but like there's a lot of the modern game where, it kind of there's this demand on perfection. So it's all about controlling the game, lots of possession, good passes. And I know a lot of that filters down from like the kind of Pep style and the Klopp style of like, heavy pressing and all that kind of stuff. It was kind of, it was giving me a heart attack at time and palpitations, but it was quite nice to see a game where towards the end, tactics didn't really matter. You just had two sides that were going for it, and they had to. And it was end to end. And like the finish to that game was exceptional. If you're a neutral watching that, you've got to be like, and I know maybe there weren't many great moments of quality, but that was a stunning football match to watch, and the conclusion of it was incredible. And I think both sides can take things out of that going into the next couple of games. I think Celtic, even without Callum McGregor starting, felt like a huge thing, and Rangers did not utilise that at all. And then conversely, he comes on in the second half and was maybe involved in a couple of the mistakes that led to Rangers getting moments to come back into the game. But yeah, it's kind of good as well, I think, in this title race that we've got at the moment. This is a proper title race, the first one we've had in 12, 13 years, neck and neck. It looks like somebody's getting a nose in front and then they're not. And it's just, yeah, I think for a neutral, it's spectacular. For the fans involved, there were heart attacks on both sides. And there were things, obviously, I think that could be taken away from the fans as being a little bit concerning, but also moments where you're just like, in terms of mentality, especially the way Rangers came back from a Rangers point of view, it's something that they can use as a springboard going into the final number of games this season.
And this is the interesting thing. This is where we get to the split. And Anthony, do you know who's kind of the favourite as it stands?
Well, I think the bookies have Rangers as just slight favourites at the moment. I think 4-6 were the odds for Rangers to win the league, and Celtic were 11-10 after that. Because I think before recording this, we were debating as to, well, actually, who is, because you both clubs and both sets of fans could debate who's actually favourites here now. But in terms of home and away games, I mean, Celtic got 6 games left. One is a known fixture, which is at home to St Mirren. So 4 Celtic out of their 6 games left, they've got 4 at home, and it looks to be 2 away. Rangers have got 7 games left, and it looks to be 2 at home and 5 away. And this is where it could be crucial. And like Finn was saying, it's been 13 years since we've had a proper title race like this. And in the last 3 proper title races in the Scottish top flight between Celtic and Rangers, the shift in power has happened in May after the split. In 2011, Inverness beat Celtic 3-2 to swing the pendulum in Rangers' favour, and who ended up going on to win the title. In 2009, that happens also again. Celtic drew 0-0 with Hibs, and it shifted the power in Rangers' favour, who they went on to win the title. In 2008, Rangers drew 1-1 at Motherwell, and that handed Celtic the power to go on and win the title. So the last 3 title races, proper title races that we're talking about, the power has shifted in May after the split. So that's what Scottish football title races are like. And I think we've sort of forgotten what they're like properly and appreciated how important they are. And this is where the pressure of being a Rangers and Celtic player, I feel that people talk about the pressure and have done over the last decade now. But this is really where it separates Celtic and Rangers from other clubs in European football, because this kind of pressure is just so intense, where if you don't win the title, you've lost. You've lost everything. It's not that, oh, we've come second. You have lost. And it's just such a huge, it's going to be so intense. It's so exciting. And this is why I love the split as well. I think this is where it really shows itself off.
And we spoke a month or 2 ago, Finn, about, how could this season pan out? And we kind of argued, I was kind of on the side of momentum being on Rangers, and you were arguing that, well, Celtic have the experience of getting over the line. Do you think that still rings true?
Oh, I think very much so. It's really weird. I won't be the first person to make these parallels, but it's interesting, I think, looking at the way that Rangers and Celtic are going into the derby matches, because a lot of it seems like a kind of like turnabout from the way it was in the 90s, which was sometimes Celtic could be playing some unbelievable football. Rangers could be ravaged by injuries, lack of form, and yet somehow going into these games, Rangers just knew what to do to get over the line, and win those games. And a lot for Celtic over the last number of years, it's been the other way around. Celtic just have that knack, that know-how. They've been there, they've done it, they've worn the t-shirt literally, and that they just have that innate experience coming into these games. What's brilliant about the split is that they will be coming up against the teams that have caused them all problems already this season. Like you could see both Rangers and Celtic dropping points, not necessarily just away. We've seen Celtic drop points at home to like St Johnstone, Motherwell, Kilmarnock. Rangers lost to Motherwell just a couple of weeks ago. So like these teams aren't infallible even in their home stadiums. I just think there's a lot of football still to be played, which is the old cliche. But I'd said a couple of weeks ago as well, I'm not entirely sure the outcome of the season rests on the Old Firm games alone. I think both of these teams will probably still drop more points this season outside of those fixtures. And that's, like you're saying, Anthony, with those examples, like, remembering Celtic away at Inverness or Rangers against Motherwell in title seasons gone by, that those can be the ones where you feel, it's not just the points differential, but you feel that momentum being sapped mentally away from the team that is in the lead at that point in the season. It's going to be box office, honestly. It's so tight. You can't throw a sheet over these two sides at the moment.
Can I also just finish on a note here, and I might be on my own here, but was this a success day for VAR? I thought the big decisions were correct, although the only one question mark was over the penalty awarded to Fabio Silva, who initially got a yellow card for simulation. But to me, there's clear contact, and you see those being given as penalties every day of the week, really, once it's been seen to VAR. But the other decisions, guys, it seems like VAR got it bang on.
Yeah, I think the other two you talk about, I mean, they weren't subjective. They were just down to the rules. And if you have issues with them, it's an issue with the rules. The Fabio Silva one, like you say, there was contact, and when you look back on it, you do see them given but the subjectivity to it is whether he was going down first, if there was enough contact, was there enough contact on the ball, and that's up to individuals to decide.
He was going down a lot in this match.
Yeah,
and I think that played
but
against him.
the ref's got to look at that sole incident, doesn't he? He can't think about the previous his previous acts of simulation or whatever you want to call it. But he's just the referee, if he's going to the monitor to look at it, he's just got to see, was there contact, and was it enough to bring him down? Actually, maybe not even enough to bring him down. Was there contact? Because I guess that's all that was needed, and there was.
Yeah, exactly. Finn, success for VAR.
I reckon so. As hard as it is, like I think Anthony's bang on. The wording that he uses, like by the letter of the law, I think they're all correct. Like there was a foul in the build up to the Dessers goal. I think regardless of how much there is contact. Therefore, it is a penalty to Rangers, and it was again rubbish by the rules. Like how Connor Goldson's supposed to not. It's not to connect there because it's deflected off somebody's head quarter of a second before it hits his. But by the rules, it's out of his natural body shape, it's a penalty. So you kind of can't really debate. And it's the point that it's there for as well. As rubbish as it is, taking out the spectacle of it, like you've seen the scenes where like Desser puts the ball over the lines. The thing is though that like in your mind, I don't know if you guys were the same. Chris Sutton seemed to be the same in commentary. As soon as the foul happens on the Celtic player, you're like, well, that's a foul. Well, I can't believe that's not been given as a foul. Like you just got that niggling thing in the back of your mind. So even when Dessers scored, I'm like, I think that'll get chalked off. Like you can't fully celebrate.
Yeah.
And even with things like when Sima scored to make it 2-2, there's still part of me that's there's reservedness to the celebration because you're like, oh, was that a handball? I don't know. Like, was there something else in there? It's like they're always going like, oh, there's going to be a check for VAR. It's like, oh, you can't until the final whistle goes. You can't take the breath and just like fully appreciate what's going on.
Football, bloody hell!
Right, we've got Laura Brannan is back with us. We've dumped Anthony. We're back with Laura. Good to see you again. I know. But we're going to talk about Dundee's pitch because at the weekend there were fears over whether their game against Motherwell would go ahead. The fears were first raised really about 11 a.m. when there was an early pitch inspection on Saturday, and then there was talk of another pitch inspection at 1 p.m. 2 hours before kickoff. But the game was confirmed to go ahead, and Motherwell kind of came out with a wee statement as well, saying that they were concerned for players' welfare, etc. I mean, I suppose Motherwell had the last laugh because they were 3-2 winners, Laura. But there's question marks here. It's not good for the game to see a pitch that bad. And when we're talking about these games are so important now before the split to get into the top six, and people are getting confirmed now, there's pressure to get these games on. But it's not a good advert.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shambles, wasn't it, around the whole kind of build up to this game. So the fears were first raised, I think, a day before when they made it clear there was going to be a pitch inspection. And I think a lot of people at that point were saying, like, there's been 4 call-offs already at Dens Park. Can we just change it to a different venue? Either put it on at Fir Park, put it on at Tannadice, take it somewhere else completely. Obviously, that wasn't going to happen. So they had the pitch inspection at 11, still didn't quite pass it. So they scheduled another one for 1 p.m. Now, this was kind of problematic because it takes over 2 hours for fans to leave Motherwell, get on public transport and get to Dundee. Not just get to Dundee, but get up that massive hill to get up to Dens Park as well. So fans had to leave before the game was confirmed being on. So fair play to the 500 fans that actually travelled for this one and took the gamble. But when you actually see the pitch itself, we laugh about the whole swimming pool element to it. The actual embarrassing part of it is the fact that there was so much sand on the pitch. The whole penalty box at one end, I mean, it looked like something off a beach. I think we're all in agreement here that a club in the top flight should not have a pitch in that state come April, come this stage of the season. There needs to be investment put into that, taken seriously, to never be in that situation. I don't think that's even up for debate.
How can you even enforce some sort of law on clubs to make sure that their pitches are leafy and lovely and, you know, perfect? It's hard, right? Clubs have got to manage themselves. But I don't know how you can avoid that. Plus, it's Scotland. Like, the weather's bad. You know, I'm not a groundsman. I don't know. I don't think any of us are, you know, green fingers. Like, I just think it's one of those things. So what? Like, if there's a bit of sand on the pitch, I know it was a lot of sand, Laura, but players play in those conditions all the time. Like, is it really that bad?
Well, no, but they don't know, that's the thing. And I think where you're asking, like, oh, how can you police it? It doesn't need to be leafy green, like bowling green type thing. We'll take playable. We'll take not drowned. I think, because the real questions you have to ask is that, I think when Dundee put out the statement, they said something like, obviously there's been a lot of rain in the Dundee area. I'd be like, well, I mean, does that end of the street just filter everything down the way onto your pitch? Because there's literally a stadium on the same street that is perfectly playable and looked after. So it's nothing to do with your locale. And there are pitches, as we've seen, junior pitches that are still playable. You're raising a question about the weather in Scotland, and it's like, of course, there will be points in the season where games are called off and it's extenuating circumstances. We just have to live with that. That happens. But at this stage in the season, it's not like there weren't any weather warnings. There's not been flooding. It's not like we're going into the game being like, oh my goodness, like, don't travel unless absolutely necessary. It's none of that. This was the only game in danger of being called off, and it's in the top flight. And I know part of the reason of it as well is, obviously, we know Dundee are on the precipice of wanting to move to a new stadium. And it's like, if you're going to move house and you know you're moving to another house, you probably don't want to spend an awful lot of money doing up the house that you're going to leave. But if you're hosting parties all the time in that house still, it needs to be like hospitable for people to come in and play. You can't just use the excuse of like, oh, we're moving out soon, so doesn't matter if it's kind of shite or not. It's like this is an embarrassment on a national level. And I know that sounds like a strong way of wording it, but you cannot have top flight games where fans don't know if the game's going to go ahead. So the two most crucial factors here, one, I think, is, as Motherwell have said, is player safety. And the second thing that people just continually refuse to do is think of the fans in the midst of all this as well. It is totally unacceptable for a top flight Scottish club to be on the precipice of their 5th cancellation because their surface is unplayable. There will be workarounds with this. I think it just has to be like, if your pitch is not fit for purpose, you should not be allowed to host games there. It's as simple as that. The other workaround might be flip the fixture. If Dundee can't fulfill it at their home stadium, play it in the home ground of whomever they're supposed to be playing. If that ground's okay and free, obviously, and you're like, oh, Dundee are losing a sporting advantage. It's like, well, tough. You've made the decision to invest in your playing squad, which is performing really well on the pitch, in inverted commas, when it's playable, at the lack of investing in a proper playing surface. That's your call, and it's not acceptable. So there has to be some sort of thing. I struggle to see how, I mean, with the SFA, the SPFL, as usual, they kind of stick their head in the sand. They're kind of like pawing around the issue, not really dealing with anything. I think there has to be strong leadership, good luck getting that, and definitive consequences of results. So it's like, this is the 5th time it's happened. If it happens again, or it's on the precipice of happening again, you cannot host another home game at Dens Park for the end of the season. Find a workaround. It needs to be that grave, because we can't go into a position that people are saying like, oh, maybe we'll postpone the fixture till after the split. It doesn't work like that. That's not how it works. You don't get to pick and choose when the games are happening. The split happens when it happens. And in terms of the integrity of our sport, it all has to. You can't have Dundee making a split where if they'd lost that game to Motherwell or whatever, or somebody else had been awarded the points, that's determining where a team's going to go, potentially with Europe on the line. It's an absolute farce, and Dundee should be held to account for it.
Well, I think this goes back to, I think it was early February, wasn't it, when the regular groundsman left the club, didn't they? So Brian Robertson and his son, Brian Robertson Jr. Big fan of those, big fan of Brian's. So I don't know if they've replaced them or what, but obviously it's not looking good. Can I just move us on to talk about the split, as you kind of mentioned, Finn? It's, it was a dramatic win for Motherwell, and as I said earlier on in the podcast, St Johnstone's win over Hibs means that, this final day of the regular season coming up is going to be quite an exciting one. But who's going to... Laura, can you take me through the permutations?
Yeah, this is so exciting. I was getting all geeky on Twitter about this the weekend with the permutations. It could be a perfect weekend of drama if...
Oh my God, Rangers, I can hear the tremble in your voice. Love
permutations. I'm such a geek.
It's the lamest thing ever. Go on.
If Rangers beat Dundee midweek, and this is the game that Rangers have in hand over Celtic, if Rangers win this one, it sets up a great weekend, because then it comes down to Dundee are playing Aberdeen, Motherwell are playing Hibs. So if Aberdeen beat, if it has to be down to Dundee cannot pick up any points in that case. So if Aberdeen win that game and Motherwell beat Hibs, Motherwell will sneak in at the back post, take that top 6 spot, which I don't think anyone saw coming given the first half of the season. And this is why we love the split, because of the drama.
Do you know, Laura, not like we always introduce you as a Scotland fan, you sound a lot like a Motherwell fan right now.
They've got a place in my heart, but I just love drama in Scottish football. I just love it. Not knowing what's going to happen, come down to the last day, whether it's a championship race or a playoff relegation or top 6. The split is just so good. I don't know how anyone can possibly have a bad word to say against it.
Well, people do have a bad, like the whole argument of like, oh, you could, finish in the bottom 6, but get more points than so and so in the top 6 and all that stuff.
Nonsense.
I know it's just a lack of understanding, really.
Do you know what though? Do you know what? That actually comes down to the SPFL not knowing how to promote their own game. Because if they just actually display the tables as 2 different tables, like other countries do,
and online as well. Like that's how any other, like if you go on Who Scored or Soccer Stats or whatever, like that's how they do it.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly the way it should be displayed, and then nobody would have the complaint of, oh, 7th has more points than 6th. It does not matter. If they're displayed as 2 different tables, the way that they should be marketing it, it would make complete sense.
Yeah, totally. Finn, you must be a fan of the split, I take it.
Do you know, I wasn't in previous years, but I think in the last number of years, I've really come to appreciate it more, because it's peculiar, and I think Laura's absolutely right. I think it's baffling to other people. We don't know how to market it at all as a league, but it is brilliant, because we were saying in the chat with Anthony, the title running is going to be great, because Rangers and Celtic will be coming up against teams that have taken points and beaten them already this season. So the likes of Kilmarnock, Hearts, St Mirren will, and potentially Motherwell, will have the chance to make an impact and have a say on where the title goes. At the bottom, I know Livy look like so adrift and everything, but if you can go into the split and take that as your own mini league, and there's 5 games left, there's 15 points on offer, and you're only playing teams that are around about you. Yeah. Of course, it's just 3 points, but it could be 3 points, obviously, to you and away from a rival. Like, you are choking the life out of rivals if you can win those games in the relegation half of a split. So, yeah, it's billboard. It's brilliant, and it means that there are very few meaningless games now in this back end of the season heading into May, and that's got to be a good thing for the league.
Right, the kind of only other headline from the Premiership, guys, was that St Mirren have sealed top six again under Mr. Robinson. Robertson.
That's your bedtime.
Past my bedtime, definitely. But Laura, this is a great thing for St Mirren once again.
Of course it is. Back-to-back top six finishes. It's what I'd say what more do St Mirren fans want. Obviously, they want a lot more, and they're going for Europe this season, but it's a very successful 2 campaigns to look back on. St Mirren just feel right now like a very well-run club. Everything is going very well for them, from the playing side of things, up to management, up to even above that with Keith Lasley in charge. Everything is going very well. That was a sellout crowd at home to Hearts at the weekend. Now, they lost the game, okay, it didn't go the way they
2-1,
planned,
yeah.
but they still clinched the top six because of results elsewhere, because Hibs lost their game to St Johnstone. To have a sellout crowd for a game like that is absolutely fantastic, and it is not a one-off as well. It's not like just big games come around, the big crowds are out. This has been a consistent thing over the course of the season. They have been filling the stands for every single home game, so fair play to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, they're yeah, in fifth as it stands, Dundee in sixth, Kilmarnock in fourth, and of course Livy and Aberdeen, they were a goalless draw. Still no new manager at Pittodrie. And Kilmarnock, as I mentioned, they beat Ross County 1-0. In the Championship, the leaders, Dundee United, they were 5 goals to the good against Queen's Park at Hampden. Goal difference isn't going to play a part, really, because it's still tight, but they are ahead, 31 goals ahead of Wraith Rovers at the moment, but 4 points is the difference at the top of the table. Wraith do have a game in hand, so it's still going to be really interesting. At the bottom of the Championship, it's not looking good for Arbroath, as we've said pretty much every week. All but confirmed to be relegated to League One. They're 12 points adrift. We're still 12 points to play for, but it's, let's face it. What is it? Possible goal difference between them and Inverness. I think, and it was Inverness that beat them, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they have to not only win every single game and hope Inverness lose every single game, they have to have a swing of 37 goals. So it was all but clinched at the weekend. They're going down. It's just a matter of formality now to mathematically get them over the line. Under the line. Over the line, under the line.
Yeah, they're smoked, shall we say. Totally toast. Falkirk in League One, obviously champions there. They'll be going up to the Championship, but still invincible. That's the goal for them. With 4 games to go, could they do it? Pretty special. But in League Two, guys, I'm rattling to get here because Stenhousemuir, champions for the first time in their history, winning a league title, 140 years in the making, an unbelievable, really. I just can't believe that's even the case, really, when you think about it. Obviously, I know they were relegated from League One, and they were up in League One because of the playoffs. But now they're league champions, which is so special. And you saw the celebrations on social media. It was so cool, man, to see like that level of excitement. And that's what we love about our game. Sometimes in the top flight you can get kind of wrapped up in kind of top level football or whatever. But see at this level, and the real impact that it makes and the joy that it can have. Like, it might not happen in 140 years, but when it does happen, oh my God, that there's just no emotion that can match that.
I think this season as well, there's been a really good mix of experience and young players playing through the squads. So you've got the likes of like Darren Jameson, Gregor Buchanan, Nat Wedderburn. They have been the journeymen through the kind of the lower leagues in Scotland. They've done it. They're in their 30s. They know how to play this game. But you've also got the young boys coming through as well. So you get Kinley Billam, who's only 21, Eden Lynch, Matty Yates, Ewan O'Reilly. They're all very young 20s. First, second, third season at Stenny, haven't done much with their careers yet, but they're playing week in, week out. Some chipping in with the goals as well. It's a really good blend right now of young and old. And I think that's really helped the squad this season. There's not many in-betweeners.
And those players, and they've got a championship medal, do you know what I mean? Like that experience just, you know, they'll be remembered. They'll have good careers, those boys, I've got no doubt. But have you seen the bottom as well? Clyde are off the bottom of the table. Like, absolutely amazing, Finn, isn't it? Like the first time since September. And Ian McCall, he's worked his magic.
He has, and it's taken quite a long time for the ship to turn around. It's been turning around very slowly, very, very slowly. But their form has picked up incredibly so over the last 2 months, really, or month and a half in particular, because I think they were the form side in the division. I think they won something like, had won 4 and drawn 2 in a run of 7, I think it was. The most important thing is that in the games that have really mattered, the kind of relegation 6-pointers at the bottom, if you will, they've clawed their way to victories. I think still the biggest one was a number of weeks ago when they battered Stenny 6-1 away.
Yeah,
I think that just, in terms of mentality, it wasn't just a win. It wasn't just like, oh, you stuck in there and nicked it at the death or whatever. It was an absolute dismantling of clearly the best side in the division. So the way that they've been able to use that as a springboard, and he's been able to take the group of players that he's got to wreak every bit of energy and dedication out of them to put together this unbelievable run, because they were dead and buried by Christmas time. They really were. They were on a hide into nothing.
there were about
fair play
11
to
or
the
12
club.
points. There was about 11 or 12 points between them and Stranraer.
I think it was even 13 maybe at some point.
Yeah.
It kind of like late January, Feb. It's astonishing, and all credit to Ian McCall. I think one of our most popular segments that we'd done this year was when we were asking someone affiliated with the club at Clyde what they felt. You know, obviously this Partick Thistle legend coming in, and it's like, oh, it's kind of weirdly, it's kind of win-win, because if he comes in and he's terrible, you know, it's bad news for the club, but he'll always be hated. If he comes in and does it, like, we'll have to eat a bit of humble pie. But it's fair play to the club getting a level of that manager and caliber. Because I don't think it's unfair to say that Ian McCall is a manager that's probably worthy of being in a higher level than League Two, and right at the bottom of League Two. But they've turned it around, and if you're a Clyde fan, you'll be thinking, thank goodness, because, you know, such a storied and historic club in Scottish football, they were in real danger of dropping out the league altogether. And we've seen how difficult it is for other clubs that have done it in recent years. Berwick Rangers, Albion Rovers, struggling to get back into the league system. So, yeah, they'll be happy. But I just to go back to Stenny. Just to go back to Stenny really quickly, it was wonderful to see the scenes, and I think it's the joy of, like you said it at the top, Andrew, the joy of being a football fan. Like Stenhousemuir are a fantastic club, and they're the one club for their town, obviously, and they do so much brilliant work in the community. They're really engaged. I think they've got good people at the helm. The chairman's excellent, and he's also quite vocal as well, really not just on issues that affect his club, but I think he's quite visionary as well of where he wants his club to go, and he tries to be part of the conversation, the wider conversation in Scottish football. It's fantastic, and to see, you know, there were Stenhousemuir fans that were just beside themselves, because they've never seen, and none of their families and generations have seen Stenhousemuir lift a league title. It's a wonderful thing. It's why we love this game. This game is unlike any other. There can be moments where we experience such dark emotions as a football fan as well, but you wouldn't trade any of that for the wonderful elation you get from the moments of when your club or your country or whatever it is has these moments that just no drug can compete with this. Absolutely nothing. This game is like nothing else, and Scottish football in particular is just absolutely glorious. So I just filled me with such a warmth and a joy seeing Stenhousemuir and their fans celebrate that league title. It was just wonderful.
Of course, it's the second time Gary Naismith, their manager, has won the League Two title. So he won it with East Fife back in 2016 as well. So he'll always be in a job getting teams out of the League Two. Smashing. All right. I love it. I love seeing your beautiful faces, but I've also had enough. Thanks to Anthony for joining us earlier on as well. And thanks to you, wonderful listeners, for putting up for my raspy, horsey, weird little voice. So, yeah, go away now. Have some fun. Do something else. Stop listening. Goodbye. No, don't stop forever, though. Listen to the next one. And then goodbye. But so goodbye for now. Cheerio.